team. Perfect. Okay, let's get into it. I think the setup should work here. I think I have enough battery. If I don't, then we're in trouble. There's no real way to tell on my phone, unfortunately. Well, that could be a problem. One quick sec. I'll be right back. You can look at my books. All right, back. It's funny how no matter how many freaking chargers you have, you're always one short. I think I need to like go bulk, like go to Costco and get like 1 million of these or something. All right, let me just plug this in. That'd be devastating if this died in the middle, and that's happened. Hey, Matt. Hey, Serge. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it. Hey, John. Woo! Just ran up the stairs. Matt, you'll recognize this. This is an amazing book. You were right. I never before have I put more little stickies. You can see all of them in one of these books. It's incredible. Which means we better get started sooner, else I'm never going to get through them all. But first, I'm going to have a little bit of water. No tea today because I had a meeting right before this one, so no time. Hey, Serge, you want to say something for a real quick sec? I want to test if something's working.
Yo.
Yes. All right, that's working. Good stuff. All right, well, let's get to it. So this book is by Brian Tracy. Apparently, he's pretty famous. I didn't know this. I've never read any of his stuff. I think he's got a couple other books. Holy shit, he's got a lot of them. Yeah, he's got like 15 other ones. So I will surely be moving on to others after having read this this awesome book. So as usual, what I do is I just kind of go through the book. And I've highlighted a bunch of stuff. I've tagged a bunch of stuff. And I will just sort of read from the book, but also share any insights or experiences or whatever that I might have to share. So quite within the first few pages, I was already tagging this stuff. So, and just quickly, 21 ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time, which is what I am all about. That's why I am such a big fan of Scrum, for example, which is a framework, an agile framework to get more done within the confines of a team, I suppose you could say. So let's get into it, because as I said, there's a lot to get into. Throughout my career, I have discovered and rediscovered a simple truth. The ability to concentrate single-mindedly on your most important task, to do it well, and to finish it completely is a great key to success, achievement, respect, status, and happiness in life. This key insight is the heart and soul of this book. I just like that. Wasn't anything particular I wanted to comment on. I just... I think, if anything, just the point about the ability to concentrate single-mindedly on one important task is something that I know I struggle with. I'm the worst at it. It's like I have to have multiple things going on, and I know full well that I'm going to fail at those things, or I'm going to do a mediocre job of those things, but I just can't help myself. But anyways, then he goes to talk about Mark Twain. So of course I had to highlight this. Mark Twain once said that if the first thing you do each morning is to eat a live frog, and I'll go to explain what the frog is, what eat that frog is to eat a live frog, you can go through the day with the satisfaction of knowing that that is probably the worst thing that is going to happen to you all day long. Your frog, the title of the book, is your biggest, most important task, the one you are most likely to procrastinate on if you don't do something about it. It is also the one task that can have the greatest positive impact on your life and results at the moment. Pretty straightforward. It is the one thing that you usually put off. It's that thing like do your taxes, or get that something to your accountant, or hire that person. It's that big, hairy, audacious, annoying task that we just put on the back burner. And typically speaking, at least in my experience, and certainly what these folks are saying here, smart folks like Mark Twain are saying, is likely the task that'll create the most impact in your life, or in your day, or in your family, in your friends, or whatever. And often that is absolutely the case, I find. Moving on. And if Mark Twain says so, then I think it's fair to say that this book may be onto something. Moving on. Clarity is perhaps the most important concept in personal productivity. The number one reason why some people get more work done faster is because they are absolutely clear about their goals and objectives, and they don't deviate from them. How often do we set up what our day is going to look like and it ends up looking nothing like that? So having the discipline to make sure that you stay the course throughout the day will have a massive impact on whether you leave that day. Like sometimes we finish a day and we're just like, fuck, like what happened? Like what happened that day? Where did my day go? And a lot of times that has everything to do with the fact that you aren't disciplined enough to stay the course, to follow a plan, let alone make a plan in the first place. Moving on. A major reason for procrastination and lack of motivation is vagueness, confusion, and I like this one, fuzzy-mindedness about what you are trying to do and in what order and for what reason, which they're going to go into about making clear plans. There is a powerful formula for setting and achieving goals that you can use for the rest of your life. It consists of 7 simple steps. Any one of these steps can double or triple your productivity if you are not currently using it. And obviously we're going to go through these steps. And they are good steps. And then I'm going to show you, maybe not right after, but I'm going to show you during the course of this little hour, I suppose, my example. So what I have set up as far as my sort of day-to-day list looks like, how I sort of plan my day, my week, my month, and sort of my year, essentially. Step 1, decide exactly what you want. Either decide for yourself or sit down with your boss and discuss your goals and objectives until you are crystal clear about what is expected of you and in what order of priority. A little quote here, I guess a little insight from the author. One of the very worst uses of time is to do something very well that need not be done at all. Goes on to say, and I wrote a little note here about some of the SEO tasks that we do. Some of them we do just, they're just busy work. We need to spend a little bit more time looking at everything that we do and asking ourselves, how much impact is this going to have? How much impact on the client's business is this going to have? And thus, should we care about it? Because it doesn't matter whether it's done well or done poorly if it's not important to the client. Steve Conway says, yeah, I highlighted that. Before you begin scrambling up the ladder of success, make sure that it is leaning against the right building. I think we can all agree that is pretty badass. Trying to figure out where I highlighted here. Step 2, write it down. Think on paper. When you write down a goal, you crystallize it and give it tangible form. I always say write everything down. Keep a notepad with you. Phones don't tend to work. I don't know why. Some people swear by Evernote. I don't get it. I keep a little notepad on me, and that is, once it's written down, it's kind of in stone. Whereas if it's digital, it just doesn't feel real somehow. Step 3, set a deadline on your goal. Set sub-deadlines if necessary, which is like a sub-deadline would be like breaking it up into pieces essentially. So creating, your big goal and then making little micro goals underneath and having each one of those have their own sub date or deadline or what have you. A goal or decision without a deadline has no urgency. It's like ASAP, like saying, can you get this done ASAP? ASAP is bullshit. ASAP is not a time. ASAP is nothing. 5:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 14th, now we're talking. That's a deadline. ASAP is nothing. And a goal or decision without a deadline has no urgency and simply won't be done. Step 4, make a list of everything that you can think of that you are going to have to do to achieve your goal. I like this because I like coming up with my goal and then sort of reverse engineering, figuring out what it is that I'm going to have to do in order to get to that goal. So, and so I like the sub goals, like the micro goals, because I'll have that big goal, then I'll break it down into micro goals, and then I'll reverse engineer and figure out, okay, in order to get to that micro goal, because I know if I get to that micro goal, I can get to the second micro goal, which gets me to the big goal. I can break it up into little chunks. Be like, okay, I know if I just do this, and this, I'll get to that one micro goal. Done. Let's focus on that. And it makes it so much more tangible. It's like in Trello, for example, the project management system that we use, I can't stand big tasks that take, basically I cut it off at 8 hours. If it takes more than 8 hours, then it should be broken down into more than one task essentially, or more than one card, because it does something on your psychology. It does something to your mind when you're working on this damn task and you can never drag it to done because it's so freaking big. It feels like you did fuck all day, which again just doesn't do good for the psyche. Step 5, organize the list into a plan. Organize your list by priority and sequence. Nothing to say there. Pretty straightforward. Hey, Julie, thanks for joining us. Nice to have you. Step 6, take action on your plan immediately. Do something, do anything. I preach that one a lot. Step 7, resolve to do something every single day that moves you toward your major goal. Pretty straightforward stuff. I won't repeat those. We're recording this, so if you want to check that out later on, by all means. Better yet, just get the book. This is the book we're looking at, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. It's an awesome book. Moving on. And there's like these little, again, sort of author insights throughout the book. I don't know if you can see that. They're like these little boxes. Like that. So little notes, little steps, little sort of actionable items you can take away. So I highlighted one here. It says, review your list of 10 goals. So he suggests 10 goals. And select one goal that, if you achieved it, would have the greatest positive impact on your life. So that's kind of like each day you set out your 10 goals or 10 things that you want to accomplish, and you pick the ugliest, the biggest, the nastiest looking frog first. That should be the first thing you accomplish because, like this book goes on to say, that is the thing that's going to have the most impact on your day or life. Whatever that goal is, write it on a separate sheet of paper, set a deadline, make a plan, take action on your plan, and then do something every single day that moves you toward that goal. So they're obviously speaking about things a little bit bigger than a single task, but all the same. It's the same idea. All right. The good news is that every minute spent on planning saves as many as 10 minutes in execution. It takes only about 10 to 12 minutes for you to plan out your day, but this small investment of time will save you up to 2 hours that same day. So by not planning, you potentially are essentially throwing 2 hours of your life out every single day. Do the math on that every single week, every single month, every single year. That is a lot of lifetime wasted away. I'm going to read that one more time because I think it's important. Every minute spent in planning saves as many as 10 minutes in execution. It takes only about 10 to 12 minutes for you to plan out your next day, but this small investment of time will save you up to 2 hours. So what's up? Moving on. When something new comes up, add it to the list before you do it. You can increase your productivity and output by 25% or more. So that's what I was talking about earlier. Have a list in your pocket, something you can jot down. Don't forget, you're gonna forget it. Like people have just too many freaking things on their mind, too many distractions, too much shit going on. Put it down on paper. Carry some paper around. I've got these little these are the ones I use. The little Moleskines. They're pretty cheap, but I mean, you could just cut up sheet paper essentially, and then use a bull clip. And I think they're called bull clips. I used to have that around here. Like this. Okay, this is a monster one, but basically like this. So if you're cheap like me, what I like to do is I'll just take some printer paper, cut it into 4 pieces, and then stack them all together, and then put a smaller bull clip on it, and that'll be my thing, and it'll fit in my pocket just fine, whatnot. Anyways, oh no, I lost my place. Oh no. I think I can find it. Here we go. Moving on. Make your list the night before the workday ahead. Move everything that you have not yet accomplished onto your list for the coming day. So I would imagine like there are going to be probably a couple things that you won't complete in the day previous, and so those will move on to the next day. And then anything else that you haven't done. And then add everything that you have to do to the next day. When you make your list the night before, your subconscious mind, this is freaking awesome, will work on your list all night long while you sleep. Often you will wake up with great ideas and insights that you can use to get your job done faster and better than had you initially thought. I don't know if that's for real. That would be amazing if it was, if like while I was sleeping, my mind was like tinkering away and like getting me ready for the next day. That'd be pretty sweet. I don't know if that's real, but let's just trust Brian Tracy on that one. Moving on, create a master list on which you write down everything you can think of that you want to do sometime in the future. I'm going to skip this part because I know it myself. So this is basically where they talk about how you set up your list essentially. And so the way I've done it, which is based on this, but I did put a little spin on it, is I created in Trello different columns. So I have my master column, I have my monthly column, I have my my weekly column and my daily column, and then I have my quality assurance or quality checking column, and then my done column. And so immediately what I did when I created this is I just threw everything in master. Everything I could think of went into my master list. And then I dragged what I planned to get this done this month, and so this was like December 1st-ish. I dragged everything that I wanted to get done that month into the monthly column, and then everything that I wanted to accomplish that week, I dragged into the weekly column, and so on and so forth for day. And ideally, what you want to do, in a perfect world, what you want to do is do this at the bottom of the month, the bottom of the week, which I guess would be like a Sunday, or the bottom of a day, which would be, well, it'd be the end of the day. It'd be about now, right? I'd start to put together what my tomorrow would look like, which would be me dragging tasks from my weekly column into my daily column. And he'll go a little bit further. I don't know if he goes into this. Let's assume he does. He will later probably, is then you sort them by ugliest and biggest and nastiest frog up front. So the first task of the day is going to be the hardest, but the most rewarding task. That's going to be the first, and you basically sort them from largest frog to smallest frog, which is basically sorting it from largest impact to smallest impact. That's essentially it, and it's not that hard. He goes into some more detail about that. As you work through the day, tick off the items on your list as you complete them. This activity gives you a visual picture of accomplishment. It generates a feeling of success and forward motion. Seeing yourself working progressively through your list motivates and energizes you. It raises your self-esteem and self-respect. Steady, visible progress propels you forward and helps you overcome procrastination. Moving on. Enough said. One of the most important rules of personal effectiveness is the 10-90 rule, which I guess is kind of like the 20-80 rule or the 80-20 rule, but let's read on. This rule says that the first 10% of time that you spend planning and organizing your work before you begin will save you as much as 90% of the time in getting the job done once you get started. Kind of touched on that before, just in a different way. Made a little note here. This chapter rocks, which is probably why I highlighted just about every damn word in the chapter. Let's get into it. The 80-20 rule is one of the most helpful of all concepts of time and life management. It is also, and I didn't know this. See, we've all heard about the 80-20 rule, but he goes into depth here. We've just kind of heard sort of, we've heard it in passing, this and that, but he gets into depth. So we're going to understand it now. It is also called the Pareto principle after its founder, the Italian economist Vilfredo, Pareto, who first wrote about it in 1895. Pareto noticed that people in his society seemed to divide naturally into what he called the vital few, the top 20% in terms of money and influence, and the trivial many, the bottom 80%. He later discovered that virtually all economic activity was subject to this principle as well. For example, this principle says that 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. 20% of your customers will account for 80% of your sales. 20% of your products or services will account for 80% of your profits. 20% of your tasks will account for 80% of the value of what you do, and so on and so forth. This means that if you have a list of 10 items to do, 2 of those items will turn out to be worth 5 or 10 times or more than the other 8 items put together. Moving on. Often, one item on the list of 10 tasks to do can be worth more than all the other 9 items put together. This task is invariably the frog that you should eat first. It's the biggest frog. Give me a second here. I got to turn my notification or my sound off on Well, shit, I don't know how. Nope, don't know how. Whatever. Slack is just being annoying. Let's see where I picked up here. The sad fact is that most people procrastinate on the top 10 or 20% of the items that are most valuable and important, the vital few. They busy themselves instead with the least important 80%, the trivial many that contribute very little to results. And I think we can all admit that we do a little bit of that. We do busy work, essentially. And that's worth avoiding, obviously. Before you begin work, always ask yourself, is this task in the top 20% of my activities or in the bottom 80%? So what I ask myself is this task going to have impact on my life, on the life of my family, on the life of the people in my life, my team, my clients, whatever. I sort of weigh the impact, essentially, of completing that task. And if it doesn't have a lot of impact, it gets put off or not done at all. Time management is having control over what you do next. Your ability to choose between the important and the unimportant is the key determinant of your success in life and work. Effective, productive people discipline themselves, discipline equals freedom, to start on the most important task that is before them. They force themselves to eat that frog, whatever it is. As a result, they accomplish vastly more than the average person and are happier as a result. This should be your way of working as well. Moving on. I've got all different kinds of, I ran out of stickies here. So then I go to these big ass stickies, and then finally I pony up the cash and I get these fancy little ones here. Moving on, successful people have a clear future orientation, italicized. They think 5, 10, and 20 years out into the future. They analyze their choices and behaviors in the present to make sure that what they are doing today is consistent with the long-term future that they so desire. In your work, having a clear idea of what is really important to you in the long term makes it much easier for you to make better decisions about your priorities in the short term. What are the potential consequences of doing or not doing that task? Again, what is the impact or lack thereof impact of a particular task that is in front of you? It's a little rule, a little pro tip before pro tips existed. There will never be enough time to do everything you have to do. Truer words. You will never be caught up. Get that wishful idea out of your mind. All you can hope for is to be on top of your most important responsibilities. The others will just have to wait. Just kind of like how I've started to treat email. I will go through my email and I will basically prioritize the ones that will have the most impact. Everything else goes into like essentially no man's land. And if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, then I won't. And if it's important, then I trust that whomever I'm not replying to will follow up. And that's the best I can do. And that way, and that's the only way that I have found that I can keep in inbox zero at the end of every single night. However much time you think a task will take, and Serge, I think this one's for you. However much time you think a task will take, add on another 20% or more. Or make a game of getting the job done well in advance of the deadline. You will be amazed at how much more relaxed you are and how much better a job you do. In this next section, there's a few nuggets. 3 questions for maximum productivity, it is titled. The first question is, what are my highest value activities? Put another way, what are the biggest frogs that you have to eat to make the greatest contribution to your organization, to your family, to your life in general? Again, what I was saying before, the sort of weighing the impact. What is going to make the biggest impact on your team or your organization, your family, and your life in general? The second question you can ask continually is, what can I and only I do that, if done well, will make a real difference? Third question. Excuse me, not done with the second question. This is something that only you can do. If you don't do it, it won't be done by someone else. But if you do it, if you do it, and you do it well, it can really make a difference in your life and your career. What is this particular frog to you? Again, that question was, the second question you can ask continually is, what can I and only I do that, if done well, will make a real difference? And so that's sort of a juncture for delegation. So you're deciding essentially, should it be I that does this, or should it be somebody else? Should it be someone on my team? Should I hire a virtual assistant, etc.? Third question, what is the most valuable use of my time right now? In other words, what is my biggest frog of all at this moment? Every hour of every day, one task represents the most valuable use of your time at that moment. Your job is to ask yourself this question over and over again, and to always be working on the answer to it, whatever it may be. Moving on. We are about a third of the way through the book, and we are halfway through this office hours. So I would say we're probably not going to get through all of it today, but we're going to try. Make time for getting big tasks done every day. Plan your daily workload in advance. Single out the relatively few small jobs that absolutely must be done immediately in the morning. Then go directly to the big tasks and pursue them first to completion. The fact is that you can't do everything that you have to do. You have to procrastinate on something. So it's not about not procrastinating. That's not what this book is about. This book understands that you will have to procrastinate. It's just being smart about what it is that you're deciding to procrastinate on. Like they said, you always will be behind. Like, we just have to accept that. It's just, we have to decide what is it that we can be okay with being behind on. We don't want to be behind on the stuff that's going to have an impact on our lives, a positive impact. Everyone procrastinates. The difference between high performers and low performers is largely determined by what they choose to procrastinate on. One of the most powerful of all words in time management is the word no. This is a big one for me. This is something I'm focusing on right now, and I suck at it. I always have. I always want to please people, and it doesn't end up pleasing me much. Say it politely. Say it clearly so that there are no misunderstandings. Say it regularly as a normal part of your time management vocabulary. Say no to anything that is not a high-value use of your time and your life. Remember that you have no spare time. As they say, your dance card is full. I like that saying. For you to do something new, you must complete or stop doing something old. So there is no more space. Your day is full. So you either say no, or you take something you are already doing and you get rid of it and replace it with whatever you're adding, whatever more high value item you're adding. I like that. Moving on. Now we get into the ABCDE method. And I kind of touched on this when I was talking about prioritizing your daily tasks. They add a little method to that madness. The ABCDE method is a powerful priority setting technique that you can use every single day. This technique is so simple and effective that it can, all by itself, make you one of the most efficient and effective people in your field. That's impressive. You start with a list of everything you have to do for the coming day. This is think on paper, which I agree with and I disagree with. I think you got to use what works best for you. You then place an A, B, C, D, or E next to each item on your list before you begin the first task. So I would do this the night before when you're planning out your day. An A item is defined as something that is very important, something that you must do. This is a task that will have serious positive or negative consequences if you do it or fail to do it. If you have more than one A task, you prioritize these tasks by writing A1, A2, A3. So what I haven't yet done, I haven't gone quite as deep as these guys here. So what I haven't done is, and what I imagine doing is in that Trello list, what I imagine doing is in brackets next to the task item, putting A or A1 or A3 or so on and so forth. A B item is defined as a task that you should do. This means that someone may be unhappy or inconvenienced if you don't do one of these tasks, but it is nowhere as important as an A task. The rule is that you should never do a B task when an A task is left undone. You're not allowed to move on to the B tasks. You shouldn't even see the B tasks. B tasks don't exist until you've done the A tasks. Now my question is, what happens when something gets in your way? Like what happens when you can't finish that A task because there's some sort of blockage? I don't know. Haven't figured that one out yet. A C task is defined as something that would be nice to do, but for which there are no consequences at all, whether you do it or not. So don't really matter that much. A D task is defined as something you can delegate, D for delegate, to someone else. The rule is that you should delegate everything that someone else can do so that you can free up more time for A tasks that you and only you can do. I like to ask my question. I like to ask a little question to myself before I do something. Is there someone who can do it 80% as well as I can? If that's the case, delegate it. Stop right now or do the task and record it or whatever and delegate it right away. Don't be doing it anymore. If you have to do something more than 2 or 3 times and somebody else can do it 80% as well as you can, then you got to give it away to somebody else. An E task is defined as something that you can eliminate altogether and it won't make any real difference. So D is for delegate, E is for eliminate entirely. I'm trying to get this damn bottle open with my one hand and it's not working, so I'm trying to be sneaky about it. But that ain't gonna work. Moving on. Next page. Next page. All right, we're halfway through. The key result areas of management are planning, organization, staffing, delegating, supervising, measuring, and reporting. I'm not sure where they're going with this. I can't remember this part. This is probably when I got on vacation that I was reading this. For a company owner so these are kind of notes from myself, but I'll read them anyways because I can't say who's watching. It might be for them too. For a company owner or key executive, negotiating a bank loan may be a key result area. Hiring the right people and delegating effectively are both key result areas. I remember what they're doing now. They're kind of giving you some sense of what an A might be, for example, or what a B might be, for example, adding a little detail. I think. Did not highlight anymore, and then I got here. Here is one of the greatest questions you will ever ask and answer. What one skill, if I developed and did it in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on my career? It says, ask your boss this question, ask your coworkers, ask your friends and your family. Whatever the answer is, find out and then go to work to bring up your performance in that area. The good news is that all business skills are learnable, which is damn good because I didn't go to school for it and just had to kind of figure it out on my own. But fortunately, it's not like a lot of sort of more professional things like being a doctor or something. That I don't think you can really learn too well on your own, some of those things. My job's pretty easy, actually. Moving on. If you want to increase your rewards, you must focus on increasing the value of what you do. You must dedicate yourself to contributing more results to your company and three key tasks always to contribute the most. So I think what there's sort of a little sort of case study. They're talking about a guy who he wants to make more money at what he does and he wants to work less. And so what I think what he or she did is I'll just say it was she went to her boss and said, hey, she analyzed what the biggest frog was, what the greatest value that she could bring to her company was, what she was best at, what she was uniquely positioned to delivering. She went to her boss and said, hey, I don't want to do any of this other crap. I want to focus on this one thing. And if I do it well enough, I believe that I can produce 3 times the value for the company. But in exchange, I want 3 times the rewards. So basically they want a 3 times pay increase. That sounds, I guess in that case, the results have to be worthy of the rewards, right? I assume in this case they were. And so she did it. She delivered on that promise and she got her raise. So instead of, and she worked less because she had less of that shit to do. She just did the valuable stuff and didn't do any of the other crap. Now she's instead of working like 10, 12-hour days, now she's working like 7-hour days or something like that, or 6-hour days. I can't remember. So that's what's up. I like that approach. All right, we're getting through there. We got 15 minutes left. I think I might get through this. All right, chapter title here, prepare thoroughly before you begin. One of the great techniques for overcoming procrastination, in brackets, eating frogs, is for you to get everything that you need to work completely ready in advance. When everything is laid out neatly and in sequence, you will feel much more like getting on with the job. This is exactly what I was getting at. So remember I was saying, like, what if a blockade or a blockage comes up and you aren't able to, get something done? What do? Well, if you've prepared well enough for that task or those tasks, if you've broken them down well enough and you know exactly what it is that you need to do to accomplish that task, and you've done that the night before, then generally speaking, there won't be anything that comes up because you've looked into it. Versus not preparing, getting halfway, being interrupted in your workflow, and then having to return to it at another date, which takes time to catch up and be like, okay, yeah, I did this, I did that, right? You're wasting time right in there. Got to prepare, you got to plan, you got to be organized. My personal rule is get it 80% right and then correct it later. Run it up the flagpole and see if anyone salutes. Don't expect perfection the first time or even the first few times. Be prepared to fail over and over before you get it right. I'm not sure what the context is there. Maybe that's, to say that don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Maybe that's to say, I don't think it's fetishizing, failure or anything like that, like some people do. But I think it just means to say to ship and ship often. It's very annoying and wasteful. And if anything, this book is about not wasting. It's very wasteful to spend, countless hours working on something only to find that people don't like it. So get it 80% of the way, ship it, collect feedback, and then take it the rest of the way. At least then, if people don't like it, you haven't spent 100, 120%, 150%, 200%, 300% of the hours. You've only spent 80%. And you're less attached, which is important. But that's a whole other topic. I won't get into that. It's important because the more attached you are, the less you listen. The less you listen to customer feedback, because all of a sudden it's that much more personal. You start to take offense. But if you approach it with an open mind, because you haven't dedicated too much to it, then it's easier to accept feedback and then action that feedback. 3 steps to mastery. First, read in your field for at least 1 hour every day. So this gets a little bit away from the procrastination stuff, and it gets more into be more awesome kind of stuff. Be more awesome in your field. Contribute more value within your organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Second, take every course and seminar available on the key skills that can help you. Attend the conventions and business meetings of your profession and occupation. Go to the sessions and workshops. So I think this is kind of just some hacks, if you will, for being at the top of your particular space. We're almost there. 10 minutes to go. Record time. All right. Oh, I've highlighted a lot here. Put the pressure on yourself is the title of this chapter. Only about 2% of people can work entirely without supervision. We call these people leaders. This is the kind of person you are meant to be, and that you can be if you decide to be. To reach your full potential, you must form the habit of putting pressure on yourself and not waiting for someone else to come along and do it for you. That's why I've shared my daily tasks. I share them, and it makes me feel accountable. If it doesn't look like I'm moving things, then somebody's noticing. Somebody that I respect is taking note, and that makes me feel really uncomfortable. So that's one way that I sort of help make myself feel more accountable. See yourself lead the field. See yourself as a role model for others. Raise the bar on yourself. The standards you set for your own work and behavior should be higher than anyone else could set for you. Make it a game with yourself to start a little earlier, work a little harder, and stay a little later. Always look for ways to go the extra mile, to do more than you are paid for. That's how to lead the field. It's how to dominate. Create imaginary deadlines. One of the best ways for you to overcome procrastination is by working as though you had only one day to get your most important tasks done. Have you ever noticed when you give yourself too much time to do something, it drags on and it gets done slowly, etc. But if you give yourself, oh crap, my Kathy's here. Hello, Kitty. But when you give yourself a shorter deadline, things tend to get done a lot faster and with a lot greater sort of quality. So if you create an imaginary deadline for yourself, you can expect both that things will get done faster, but also that things get done more thoroughly. Successful people continually put the pressure on themselves to perform at high levels. Unsuccessful people have to be instructed and supervised and pressured by others. By putting pressure on yourself, you will accomplish more and better tasks faster than ever before. You will become a high-performance, high-achieving personality. You will feel terrific about yourself, and bit by bit, you will build up the habit of rapid task completion that will then go on to serve you all the days of your life. We're almost done here. Reminder, we're talking about this book right here, Eat That Frog. It's a great book by Brian Tracy. You can get it on Amazon. Get out of my way, kitty. All right. Almost at the end here. My client felt that no one else had the ability to sort his emails. This is valuable. I'm still working on this one. I'd like my assistant to start helping me with this, actually. More than 300 per day. And that he had to do it all by himself, no matter how much time it took. We encouraged him to sit down with his secretary and go through his emails, showing her which ones were important, which ones were unimportant, and how to deal with the most important questions and requests. To his surprise, within 2 hours, and this kind of goes for all sort of delegation. I think this kind of applies to it all. Not just your inbox or anything like that. Most things can be taught. You don't have to. Most things you don't have to do. It's true. It's the truth. You just don't. To his surprise, within 2 hours, his secretary knew enough to handle most of his emails for him. From then on, she would come in each morning and delete 80% of his emails that were of no value. And you may not think this is much. Like, you may think, well, it takes me 5 minutes, but add that up, right? 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes in the evening. It's not even just the time. It's not even just that 5, 10, 15 minutes per day. It's taking you away from something else. It's doing something you don't enjoy. It's all those things combined and more. So don't think of it just as time. It's a distraction. It's a waste. It's time. It's opportunity cost. It's time you could be spent doing something else that's more impactful, which is what this is all about. She would transfer the essential emails requesting personal action by her boss into a separate folder. If there was a question about an email, she would transfer it to a process folder for him to look at his convenience. At our next meeting, he told me that he had tracked the results of this exercise and calculated that he was now saving 23 hours per week that he could spend on eating his bigger frogs and completing his most important tasks. It's going to have a lot of impact, I think. Slice and dice the task. We kind of touched on this. I'm going to finish this book if we go over or not. It doesn't matter. Slice and dice the task. We touched on this a little bit earlier. We talked about breaking your task into more bite-sized pieces. A major reason for procrastination on big important tasks is that they appear so large and formidable that when you first approach them, or so large and formidable when you first approach them. That's why you avoid them, because they're just so ugly. They're so horrible. They're going to take so much time. You don't even know what could lay beyond. One technique that you can use to cut a big task down to size is the salami slice method of getting work done. With this method, you lay out the task in detail, and then you resolve to do just one slice of the job at a time, or one slice at a time being like eating a roll of salami one slice at a time, or eating an elephant one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Psychologically, you will find it easier to do a single piece of a small or of a large project than to start on a whole job. I see this in my organization. We create, big tasks. They don't get done on time because they're left and they're left and they're left because they're just so daunting. And then we try and leave them for the last moment, and we don't know. We might not know what is on the other side of that hill. We get to the other side of that hill, and it's a fucking mess, and then it just doesn't get done. Then it gets pushed off. Not good. Schedule blocks of time. The key to success of this method of working is specific time segments, or in specific time segments, is for you to plan your day in advance and schedule a fixed time period for a particular activity or task. Make work appointments with yourself and then discipline yourself to keep them. Set aside 30, 60, 90-minute time segments that you use to work on and complete important tasks. Think the Pomodoro technique, 20, 25, 30-minute intervals. So a task might be like 2 Pomodoros or something like that, right? And so what you would do is you look at your calendar the day before again, right? And you break it down. 20-minute, 1 Pomodoro, 20 minutes to this task. 2 Pomodoros, 40 minutes to this particular task, and book it in your calendar, right? Especially if you're like me and you got those like Calendly apps where people can book time, like 15-minute chunks in your calendar. And it's a nightmare, right? Which is why you set like a thing that they can't book like within 24 hours or something like that, right? So just make it easier on yourself. Plan ahead. Many high productive people schedule specific activities in pre-planned time slots all day long. These people build their work lives around accomplishing key tasks one at a time. For example, from 8 to 9 a.m., I do the exact same thing every single morning. It is blocked time. It is not time a client can book or anyone else can book. It is my time. It is the time I handle email and correspondence and support and things like that. It's the time I get to sort of connect with my customers, essentially. Use a time planner. A time planner broken down by day, hour, minute, and organized in advance can be one of the most powerful personal productivity tools of all. Another thing that I do is I will sort of break down, it's kind of another sort of just another, you could do this in your online calendar, you could do this in, you could do this on paper or whatever, is I will say from 10 to 10:15, I'll put that next to the task because that's the time I have allotted. If I don't complete it by that time, I move on because from 10:15 to 10:30, I'm working on something else. During these working times, turn off the telephone, eliminate all distractions, and work nonstop. One of the best work habits of all is to get up early and work at home in the morning for several hours. Well, I work at home all day, which presents its own distractions and challenges. But I can definitely vouch for getting up earlier in the morning because the phone rings less. There's less emails coming in. There are just less distractions in general. Maybe your loved one is still in bed. Less distractions. Make every minute count. When you fly on business, this is my favorite productivity hack because I get them. I wish I could just fly all the time. Like I would just from morning to night, I would just be on an airplane. I would get so much freaking work done. When you fly on business, you can create your office in the air by planning your work thoroughly before you depart. When the plane takes off, you can work nonstop for the entire flight. You will be amazed at how much work you can go through when you work steadily in an airplane without interruptions. Well, now planes have Wi-Fi, so that's not helpful to a point. But anyways. All right, I'm almost at the end, and then we will wrap up. One of the ways you can trigger this state, trigger high performance in yourself. One of the ways you can trigger this state of flow is by developing a sense of urgency. This is an inner drive and desire to get on with the job quickly and get it done fast. It is an impatience that motivates you to get going, to keep going, and to keep going. A sense of urgency feels very much like racing against yourself. Gamify everything that you do, as those in the tech world might say. I think I have one more thing here, and then one more highlighted little thing here. Ooh, 2 things. One of the simplest and yet most powerful ways to get yourself started is to repeat the words, do it now, do it now, do it now, over and over. If you feel yourself slowing down or becoming distracted by conversations of low-value activity or low-value activities, repeat to yourself the words back to work, back to work, back to work. I'll give you 2 tips for that. Number 1, there's a Chrome app called I think it's do fucking work or something like that. So every time you go to social media, it'll say do fucking work and it'll block you from social media. The other thing I've been meaning to do is to print and frame something that says discipline equals freedom, which will remind me to be disciplined. Otherwise, I compromise or give away my very valuable freedom. Last bit. It has been estimated that the tendency to start and stop a task, to pick it up, put it down, and come back to it, Serge, we talked about this before, can increase the time necessary to complete the task by as much as 500%. Each time you return to a task, you have to familiarize yourself with where you were when you stopped and what you still have to do. You have to overcome inertia and get yourself going again. You have to develop momentum and get into a productive work rhythm. If you work with developers, programmers, designers, creative people, this is like the most important thing. Do this for them. Don't bug them, and help them be more focused. And by all means, because it's just, you forget that last line of code you wrote, or that little something that you wrote deep in code, and you'll start writing code again, then you'll remember, oh shit, but that thing, and then you'll have to start over, and so on and so forth. And there definitely is a rhythm to coding, no doubt about it. The truth is that once you have decided on your number 1 task, anything else that you do other than that is a relative waste of time. And that's it. And there's some checklists in the back of this book. A few action items, things like that. I love books that end that way. This is an awesome book. Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy. It's one of the best books I think I've read in a little while. In a long while, in fact. I don't know that I would go as far to say all year, but it definitely has some of the most actionable, relatable stuff that just about anybody can apply. It's just basic shit, right? But we just have to remember, and it's got a lot of tactics for helping us employ some of these strategies. So check it out. And thank you for your attention. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope that you will go out and get this book, and that's it. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. So have a wonderful week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.